Writing Multiverse has returned after for so long, and it's finally time to kickstart and talking about this stuff regarding the Multiverse series because a lot has changed since the last video I had talked about. And the reason why I'm not doing this in the video format that I've lately been doing thanks to my new camera that I got back in November is because I'm kind of used to the special style that I'm able to put the pictures of, and I didn't want my camera video to be shown on that and get in the way of it. So let's get into this. So basically, the next stage in writing Multiverse is talking about a character that I have been debating about whether or not if I should bring him into the Multiverse series. And it's ultimately come to coming up with plans, trying to figure out how do I kill this guy somehow in order to build up a story for him eventually down the road. So what happened is that I've decided, as the title suggests, that yes, Dr. Manhattan, and by extension the Watchmen universe, is going to get involved in the multiverse story. And that is going to be a very, very different take on things. Like, yeah, a lot of the elements of Doomsday Clock will most likely appear on here because I need to get the other characters of Watchmen involved, but I'm going to have to wait till the end of Doomsday Clock in order to really get ahead to see what's going to happen in that and see how they either kill off Dr. Manhattan or how the other characters will be affected by everything. So, so here's the thing. When it came to Dr. Manhattan, I was always curious. When I first read him, I was looking things up about him and how he's this apathetic, kind of distant decline of humanity in him because he's this powerful entity that can't really walk among man, and how what he does in the New 52 and DC Rebirth initiative, where he goes ahead and basically fucks history up, and now he's endangered himself because of it. And now it's like, okay, so I got that planned out, so we got that foundation to, okay, let's build on that. So what happens in this version of stuff is that Dr. Manhattan, that everything that happened in Watchmen stays what happens. And what happens next is that Dr. Manhattan later on goes to try and do what he does. He starts to conduct small experiments on the DC universe of my interpretation, like taking certain characters out of existence and restarting the timeline to see how the world is affected by these certain disappearances. Specifically, he's targeting the speedsters, like the Flash family, like Jesse Quick, Max Mercury, and even some new characters I wanted to bring in that were speedsters, but were not officially part of the Flash family. So then his ultimate grand prize is to basically try, after Wally West is killed in the Reach Invasion storyline from Young Justice, since I'm taking elements of Young Justice and putting it into my story. In fact, a lot of elements of Young Justice will be in it. Dr. Manhattan plucks Wally out of the Speed Force, since I'm bringing that in, since it was mentioned by the people who were in charge of Young Justice says they don't like the Speed Force idea, so I'm bringing that in. And however, whereas this would alter everything, it doesn't. You see, what happens is that Eric saves Wally West along with the other speedsters to help him defeat Dr. Manhattan. He takes Wally and the others to this pocket dimension where they go ahead and basically have to come up with a plan to find a way to defeat him, because what they're basically fighting is a god entity who can't be defeated to a major extent, and the ultimate end goal is to kill Manhattan off. And this is part of a multiverse story. If you don't know what that is, I'll talk about that at a later day in the writing multiverse series. But the end game result is that this kickstarts something called the Flash Manhattan War, where the Flash family and its associates go to war with Dr. Manhattan, who is intending to basically threaten the multiverse with his curiosity and interest in altering things to see how history goes. As I've read his Before Watchmen comic, I'll cover that in a later video, in one of my thoughts videos in the future. But yeah, so so basically what's going to happen is that yes, Dr. Manhattan is killed in the Flash Manhattan War, But Wally West is also killed by Eric afterwards, after Manhattan gives him one last perspective of the future, because remember, he speaks like he knows stuff that's going to happen before it actually happens. And he knows he's going to die, but he decides to go through with it because, he's just a puppet who sees the strings. And and then after following that, he's not around for a long time. He gets brought up a couple times for referencing the Flash Manhattan War and to explain why Wally West disappeared in the main Multiverse series. But then I was like, okay, so what are we going to do in order to tell the story? So I was rereading the Watchmen comics that we have so far, issues 1 through 9, and issue 10 got delayed to May 29th, so around the same time Heroes in Crisis comes to an end, so we know where that's going. And then they're going to get a 3-month delay. Thanks. Thank you very much. Where eventually this is going to reach a event in my Multiverse series where during the final storyline of the Emperor Eric saga, we get the Resurrection Crisis, and this will ultimately have the end result of altering a bunch of the multiverse stuff, causing some retcons that I want to try out, some new experiments, but it ultimately brings back certain characters, and one of them is Dr. Manhattan. And this would help start the initiative of the Crisis Saga, where certain events are happening that basically threaten all of the multiverse. And I was originally going to make this an interlude storyline, but ultimately decided it needs to be the part of the main storyline. Like a threat like Dr. Manhattan and his curiosity is really telling for a main story. So what's going to happen in this plan is that what happened in Watchmen in the beginning of Doomsday Clock about how the world went to hell after Adrian Veidt's little plan failed, thanks to Rorschach's Journal, that's going to happen. We're going to get the Watchmen characters to come to the DC universe. I might even bring in the other two, Night Owl and Laurie, through other means, since they're not in the main Doomsday Clocks comics yet. Though that could change later down the road. There's still 3 issues left, 10 through 12. And that could lead to a massive retcon by Jeff Johns in the future. And also, I didn't mention Jay Garrick because he's not taken from the Speed Force, taken from Dr. Manhattan yet. So he's safe. So, yeah. Anyways, so back to this. So what's going to happen here is that Dr. Manhattan, after he finally rebuilds himself after his first death, he starts to use his powers once more to get to see what has happened in the time that he's been dead. Since this is one of the few times he's actually genuinely curious, and he's overcome with it because now he died, and now he's brought back from the dead thanks to a powerful device that Eric created that has multiple paradoxes and timelines, which I'll cover in a later date in the Writing Multiverse. But this causes his resurrection inadvertently, and after an event in the Crisis Saga where I'm debating either the Flood or the Black Lanterns Corps happens, or mix of both, and the infection that spreads, after the events are over with, we cut to this Manhattan storyline where it's called basically Multiverse Manhattan, and the tagline is, well, what the Watchmen basically was. The countdown. Basically, the tagline is the clock is ticking across the multiverse, and this is when Eric will discover that Manhattan has indeed returned, and now he seeks to ultimately alter all of history and probably destroy the very concept of the term multiverse to basically bring about the end of all things until there's only one Earth, one reality. But however, that causes a huge conundrum for him because now you got the Watchmen characters trying to find him, and because of the crisis that's going on in their world, and then Dr. Manhattan has to come to this strange realization that all the stuff in Multiverse, it is one universe. There's no alternate timelines of them. There's no alternate timeline of a great universal war. There's no alternate timeline of the Resurrection Crisis. There's no infinite universe crisis timeline. This is one cohesive timeline that can't be altered, like, say, break off and break into a different timeline. So that will create some new curiosity for Doctor Manhattan, and yeah, certain elements of Doomsday Clock will be a part of this, such as Reggie Long's hatred for Adrian Veidt. I've even been debating about bringing back the original Rorschach for a role, and the upcoming idea I have in mind is to eventually have him basically have this ultimate confrontation with Eric one more time as the multiverse is falling apart, and just like the Superman um, foreshadowing he did, where he does not see it tomorrow, but he doesn't know where that will go. And yeah, this storyline with Manhattan, since it focuses on the aftermath of the Black Lanterns, I have no idea why I say lanterns, um, or the Flood storyline, or the mix of both. I might go with. The multiverse universe is basically in the state of uncertainty and chaos, because now you have the Lantern Corps. They had the Flood, and now there's this heightened sense of security. And now Emperor Eric's trying his damnedest to know what to do with the situation. Like, the multiverse seems to be poised on the brink of chaos, and now you have this crisis with Manhattan returning. And I've been also debating whether or not Manhattan should be the guy that orchestrates the Black Lantern Corps' arrival into the multiverse. But I'm also thinking, like, no, I think that might be Thanos' gig. Yeah, I'm actually debating about making Thanos a Black Lantern Corps member, the harbinger of it, since, Thanos in the comics loves death, to the point that he wants to date her. I'm still bothered by that a little bit. So yeah, the end game result is to ultimately bring an end to the Manhattan character, but do it in a way that's both a homage to basically Alan Moore, in my mind, but like, it is trying to figure out how do we kill a guy like Manhattan, but right now we don't have that key yet. Like, there's been some ideas, like maybe someone could try and, quote, turn off his power, like there is a DC Universe character that Comics Explained Rob mentioned, but I need to study more about this in order to get everything set up for that. But yeah, this is basically trying to create this new event storyline where yeah, it's gonna be a big impact. And oh man, like, yeah, like I said, the clock is ticking across the multiverse. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I got inspired by the Watchmen trailer from HBO, which was awesome. So it's going to be very fun and very experimental how I go ahead and try and write my own style and interpretation of the Watchmen characters, crossing with the multiverse characters, and basically the greater franchises like DC, Marvel, and Kingdom Hearts and all that, crossing with the Watchmen universe. And there might be an encounter with, quote, OG Earth. So we're gonna see how that goes once we eventually get to that point. But yeah, Dr. Manhattan, he is planned to be in this story. He's going to be a big deal later down the road, and he is gonna he's gonna do some things that probably will be unheard of, if possible. And one of them is, yes, he will bring back the comedian, but he might be served for a different purpose for Manhattan. And no, we are not doing a Heroes in Crisis faux storyline. Like, there might be a mental facility storyline in book 4, which I have been considering doing, but not where everyone gets killed in grotesque fashion because of stupid nonsense that makes no sense to the greater story here. But moving on from my opinion on Heroes in Crisis that went downhill, yeah, those were my discussion about writing Multiverse, Dr. Manhattan. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more. And everything, in the end, nothing will ever end.